Good afternoon and welcome back again to A Better Jamaica's Meet the Candidates for Council District 27 here in Queens. I am Gail Lewis, and today it is my pleasure to welcome another candidate for Council District 27, and he is candidate Jermaine Sean Smith, in case you didn't know his name. Good afternoon, candidate Jermaine Sean Smith.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lewis. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having this conversation, as much of the conversation. I can't wait to dive into all the good questions I know you have.
Oh, thank you, thank you. This forum that we have going on here today, it's a little bit different than what you might be used to with other candidate forums, where there are 4 or 5 or 12 candidates all together being asked questions one after the other. This just gives us some one-on-one time with you, the candidate, so that we can give you another chance to strut your stuff, if you will. The focus of this interview is on you, the candidate. We would like to know your story, your values, your background, and of course, your vision for District 27. So we ask that you speak instead of in sound bites or bullet points, that we just have a conversation. All right?
Great, because I didn't pull up my notes.
It's a good thing.
And I'm happy that this is the format. So along this campaign trail, I've been hearing a lot of the saying, like, I'm a father, I'm a this, and I'm a that. And I didn't really understand it at first, but I understand it now, because I think those kind of bullet points, if you must say, like, gives you an opportunity to just give a baseline as to who you are. And first off, I'm a husband.
Okay, well, let me ask the first question, if I may. Sure. Also, for fairness, we're calling everyone candidate and their name, so that no one gets a title or any unfair advantage. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So, candidate Jermaine Sean Smith, welcome. Every good story, every good fairy tale starts with once upon a time. So let's start there. Once upon a time. Where were you born? Who were you born to? And do you have any brothers and sisters?
Okay. Once upon a time, I like to crack this joke because I like to say I'm from Jamaica, and then I go hospital because my family's from Jamaica. And so it goes over well usually. But I was born in Jamaica Hospital to my mother, who lived in St. Albans, right across the street from St. Albans train station, to a grandmother that lived exactly 6 blocks away from where I purchased my first home, and my great grandmother that lived in Hollis on 219. So this is my neighborhood from birth. This is where my family roots have been on the maternal side, and now I'm living in St. Albans, Queens.
So brothers and sisters?
Yes. So I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. I'm the only child of my mother and my father, which kind of explains the story as to how my mother had to give me up to my paternal grandparents to raise me. It was a source of controversy with my maternal family, but that move saved my life because it afforded me a lot of opportunities in terms of education, in terms of religious affiliation, and becoming really entrenched in church and understanding, God is the center of my life. And then,
there's a lot to unpack there. So let's take a few steps back. All right. Yeah. So mom, what was mom's name again?
Hillary Newman.
Hillary. Okay. So mom, Hillary, gave you up to your paternal grandparents. What were their names?
Ivy and Dudley Smith.
Ivy and Dudley. Awesome. So Ivy and Dudley actually raised you. And where did they raise you?
They raised me in Canarsie, Brooklyn,
nice.
In the weekdays, and then my mother had me on the weekends. So all my,
all your fun things happened in Queens, and all the boring daily things happened in Brooklyn. That is so many people's stories. So I think that you are resonating right now with a lot of people who that was the thing. Most people, though, had it in reverse that I've heard of. So this was like coming to the country, and then and then spending other time in Brooklyn. So that story is one that we hear over and over again. So you're in very good company. So so your grandparents raised you without any brothers or sisters, just your grandparents and you?
Yeah, it was my grandparents, my great grandmother, my aunt, two of my aunts, my uncle. It was a packed house, a lot of supervision, but I was the only child. So all
Oh,
the attention was paid on my schooling. You know, all of my attention was paid on what I was doing from so many different avenues. But it was a place of love. And that's why I say my mom really did something that saved my life.
absolutely. So you're living in Brooklyn. What schools did you go to? Grammar school,
Uh,
middle school, high school?
yes, I went to um, 276, 279, excuse me, PS 279. Then I went to,
In Brooklyn.
yeah, and Builder C. And then I went to Science Skills Center High School, which is in like right under the Manhattan Bridge. I got into that school at the time. It was the #3 school. I'm still proud to say that. And yeah, so that was my high school years.
Mhm. Nice. And you said also that grandma and grandpa, who you were living with in Brooklyn, introduced you to your faith. What church did they attend? What church did they bring you to?
It's a great question. So they went to Church of God of East Flatbush, being that they were, you know, immigrants. The church was very Jamaican friendly, and so that's where they, you know, put their roots down, and you know, to the point where my aunt became a pastor, and you know, my grandmother was head of the ladies ministry, so it was consistent. At like consistent giving back and being at church literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday I was at church.
That is great. So you were very involved in your faith from the time that you were small. So you got all those really good memories, I'm sure. And you said that your grandparents, your paternal grandparents that you were living with, they were immigrants from Jamaica.
Yes.
Okay. So that's your dad's side of the family is Jamaican. And did
Both.
you also say that your mom's side was as well?
Yeah. So my mom's side is from Jamaica. She's from the country. I mean, the city, Red Hills is where they're from, and then my paternal is from the country. So my dad and my mom kind of, you know, clashed in a good way.
You met in the
And
middle.
here I am.
Awesome. Thank you. So, in the birth order, where do you fall? I know you're the only child from your parents, but where did you fall in all of the siblings? Older, younger?
So for my dad, I'm the oldest child. For my mom, I am the second born. My older brother's autistic, and you know, I love him so much, Andre. And then my two younger sisters that she raised, like had later on, years later.
Mhm. So, your older brother is autistic. How did that kind of inform your worldview from when you were a child?
Um, you know, to be quite honest, when I was younger, I was a little bit resentful, just because. Sorry, it's a little hot. Just because my brother took up all my mother's attention, and I wanted to live with my mother, you know, instead of just being there on the weekends and, you know, doing all that fun. I wanted to live there full time. So I was a little resentful of him because he had that opportunity. But at the same time, I was almost like, you know, on the weekends, I had to be caregiver as well. And so Andre's needs were a priority. And so I think that kind of informed my ability to have empathy for people, to really understand what they're going through and try to be there for them.
Okay. And so, what was your very first job?
My very first job, it was at EAB Plaza. I
Uh-huh.
was 16 years old, and I remember commuting from my dad's house in Rosedale all the way to EAB Plaza to work in a mailroom.
On the N6.
Yes, yes, that was the ride, and it was fun. You know, everybody, a 16-year-old, nobody, you know, gave me any kind of like budgets to do, but I learned so much about the grind of waking up each morning and punching the clock. And sometimes I get a ride home because my aunt they work there. I get a ride home. Sometimes I'd have to figure it out, but you know, that lesson was taught in that summer of like commuting, you know, for 45 to an hour, you know, each day. So that was my first job.
So you were living with your dad then. Did you live with him in high school, or is that when you came to Queens
No, that was
more
just no, that was
permanently?
just
Just
yeah, that was
just for
just
the summer?
for the summer job. I was like, it doesn't make sense to
Go all the way to Brooklyn.
Right. And then my mom at that point had moved. And so that was my only option, was Rosedale.
And so after high school, what would you do next?
After high school, I went to college directly.
Where'd you go and what'd you study?
Okay, I went to Hofstra University, and I studied political science and sociology. And that's where I learned so much about grit, fortitude. I joined my fraternity, which is Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. A lot of memories, getting active with student government, getting active with the chapter and local Greek, the Greek activities, because Alpha Alpha stands for Manly Deeds and Scholarship, and so it was consistent giving back to the community over there, which was in Hempstead, making sure that we were always doing something, and also partying and having a good time as well.
Just a little bit, just not as much as you were studying, right?
Yeah, right. Right.
So did you live on campus? Because you lived not far away. So did you live on campus or did you commute every day?
Yeah, for the first semester, I commuted from my dad's house. And then subsequently, right after, I said, no, I need my independence. Let's figure it out. So I went on campus and had a good time.
Yeah. Where did you live on campus? Do you remember?
Yes, I lived in the dorm, Nassau, Suffolk. That was either Nassau or Suffolk. I was in Nassau.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, I did Bill of Rights. That was the dormitory that I stayed in.
Nice. Tower B.
Ah, you know Hofstra then. Okay.
There you go, just a little. So,
okay.
That's why I asked. Okay. So you graduate Hofstra, and then what?
Yeah, I found that
Actually, you graduated Hofstra with the degree in what?
Political science, sociology.
Right.
And I found that I went to work in the nonprofit field. I started working at a group home for young people that had emotional disabilities. So it was an office and mental health home. And it was in my last semester, and I started working overnights. And I found that, I was really connecting with these young people in a real genuine and authentic way. And I started taking on, requesting to take on more leadership roles, do activities, plan trips, do family connections and activities that bring these families back together, because these kids were living away from their family because of what they were experiencing from an emotional standpoint. So I started working and really diving deep into my roots of, from the church, of giving back and working with people. It became natural, instinct to be able to do that job really well.
And how long were you there?
I was there for 3 years. 3 years I was there. It shaped, I guess, how I learned how to be a professional, how to work in environments with different personalities, how to be creative, and how to be, come up with ideas and how to present it to supervisors, and be really good at that.
And then after that, did you go to graduate school, or was that did you finish your formal education at Hofstra?
Yeah. So after working at the OMH home, what I did was I was poached from that site, from my supervisor, and brought to another agency, which is HeartShare St. Vincent's. And it was a startup program very similar to the one that I was just working at. And at that time, I had an idea as to what it is that I wanted to do. And I was focusing my attention on, I was going to study and then go to law school, and then, figure that whole thing out, student loans and money that I owed Hofstra. It all was catching up to me. And as a young man, there was some serious decisions that I had to make. And I started to become a recluse, where I didn't spend money. I was paying down debts and just focusing on that. Really, once I transitioned to the next job, and then working there, I was able to pay off those loans, pay off those debts, and then figure out what it is my next step was going to be.
And so, what was that next step?
Yeah, so I started studying. I got a promotion to now run the entire foster care youth division for Hardship St. Vincent Services, and go in there and build a culture and start, something that wasn't there. And in that process, I found myself speaking to young people, providing them with opportunities to get college degrees, and speaking about the importance of studying and getting good grades and things of that nature. And so that's when I said to myself that I have to go to school. I have to go back to school again and focus my education on getting some like skills that I would need to be a great leader. So that's when I went to Fordham and I got my executive certificate in nonprofit leadership. I also went to Metropolitan College to do some studies, professional studies, just understanding like leadership and how to properly get people to follow through on what it is that they want to do. And then, more promotions. And then where I ended was that I took the LSAT. This is really personal. I haven't shared this with many people, but I took the LSAT. I took the LSAT and I got a 140. I don't know if you know what that means, but essentially you get a 120 for writing your name correctly. So I took that really, I took that really personal because I was juggling a lot of things at the time, fellowships, no excuses. And I took that, and what I did was I locked in, I went back, and I got a 160 the next time, which was like, okay, you're not actually dumb. And so I got the score that I wanted. I applied to law school, but my wife's an attorney, and she was like, do you really want to go to law school? Because people that go to law school really actually have to love the law. And I was like, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. I don't love the law. So we started like searching for a program that worked for me. And that's when, my mentor, which is the executive director of Hardship St. Vincent's, she was like, you should take a look at my school. They have a really good program. I think it would hone in on all the skills you have, but allow for you to grow, especially in the area of data analysis and budget management and things that I just started to dibble and dabble in. And that's when I decided to go to NYU.
And what program did you pursue at NYU?
Yeah, so I entered the Robert F. Wagner School of Public Service for the Executive Masters of Public Administration program. It's a small cohort, very selective of who they let in, but they have to have a lot of leadership experience, a lot of like capacity and high level, and also understanding what it takes to be a leader. So I love that program. It was everything. Graduated there summa cum laude as well last year. And that was the most fun I've had because it was practice. Everything that I was doing, I was able to apply it to the graduate school experience. And that's why I was, all A's, because literally, a 2-year program I completed in a year because it was that much fun.
Yeah, do what you love, and everything else will follow, right? So when did you finish with the program at NYU with your MPA there?
Last year, and during the pandemic was when, I know. So I didn't even get to walk across the stage.
Yeah.
But they still promised us. They promised us that we're gonna be able to go to Yankee Stadium. But May 2020 is when I finished.
Oh wow! And so, are you still with St. Vincent? Have you changed jobs? What's that?
Yes, I currently still work at St. Vincent's, but I'm kind of like loaned out for another big project that I've been working on for the past 3 years. I guess there was like actually nowhere else for me to get promoted to, so they kind of loaned me out to this major program called Fair Futures. And if you don't mind, I'd love to jump into that a little bit.
So what do you do there now, and what's your new position there? And where are they? Where are they located?
Well, Fair Futures is a coalition of 150 nonprofits and 26 foster care youth agencies in New York City. And my work there has been around getting advocacy done with City Council to get funding for the program Fair Futures. The first year we went in, we were asking, we had a lot of meetings and advocacy with state senators and assembly members, and what happened was we got shut down. We lost the fight. They gave us absolutely no money, but it allowed for us to go back to the drawing board, figure out how it is that we were going to attack this program. really start to empower the young people that we were advocating for. And then we went back to city council this time. And the first year they gave us $10 million. Then the pandemic hit, and then they cut it to 2.7. There was a lot of, uproar that I kind of built. I got labeled a bit of a fire starter, but the Office of Budget Management, other representatives from the mayor's office, ACS all came to the table, and we were able to get that to $12 million funding for that same program in the second year. And right now, we are fighting to get $20 million baseline in the city budget so that this doesn't have to happen every year. So that's kind of where, I took a leave of absence for this campaign just because I realized I can't do both. But that's where my professional career has led me to at this point.
And where are they located?
Well, there is no actual office. Fair Futures doesn't have an actual office. There's the steering committee, which is consistent of many foundation representatives and CEOs, and then also some of the CEOs of foster care agencies, and then me. That's the way I look at it. And a few of the young people, one young person that takes on a coordinator role that I supervise directly, but it's me. Sometimes I look at around the room and I'm like, I'm the only person here without a CEO or executive director title, but always in the meetings with the city council members when it's time to start negotiating and advocating for young people in foster care.
Awesome. And it's great to see someone who actually studied for something and took that degree and is using that degree. That doesn't happen always. So it's great to have that kind of story for you to tell. So we talked a little bit about your high school, a little bit about your college, a little bit about your grad school, a little bit about you growing up. How big of a move is running for elected office for you? How big of a move does running for elected office represent for you?
Well, I'll label that on a two scale, three scales actually. So financially, I'll start there. It is a sacrifice that my family had to endure. With us having dual incomes, you kind of set yourself up so that my daughter, years down the line will be, and we're kind of dipping into that a little bit in terms of not being able to put in as much each month. But then there's the mental side wherein, back to my youth, having abandonment issues with relation to my mom. And I know this isn't therapy, that's on Thursdays, but abandonment issues and just not, and having the security of people knowing who you are and like essentially wanting the good work that you do. All of that is gone. All of that is gone. And it's really an opportunity, like in this case, where I've worked through some of those demons and it's kind of showing itself now where I'm able to take constructive criticism, get the door slammed in my face because somebody's supporting someone else. These are all things that I take on as a positive because I personally know that maybe 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do this on that side, how strenuous it is. But now as a more mature man, understanding the traumas from the past and how I have overcome them, it has been, rewarding on that side. And then spiritually, I'd say that, you get put in these situations where the values that you have grown up with, that you say that you're a part of, they really come to the forefront, and you have to stick to it. You get tested consistently, whether it be someone wanting to be a part of your campaign but you don't necessarily align with their vision or things they've done in the past. You're consistently put in this kind of spiritual warfare almost, where you have to consistently go back to your values and your beliefs and your trust in God that he's going to be there for you. He's going to, once you stay with his vision and plan, that you'll be all right.
Wow. Where do you go to church right now? Who's your congregation?
Yeah, so we're online. So I visit sometimes Queens Village Church of God. I also switch over to East Flatbush Church of God. So I'm bouncing between the two. But when I do, dropping my mother-in-law off at church, East Flatbush Church of God is home. That is home.
Nice. And where do you live right now in the district?
Yes, I live in St. Albans.
Awesome. And how long have you been there?
We've been in this home for 5 years.
Awesome. And why did you want to buy a home in St. Albans?
Well, they say when you find a home, it's it. And literally knowing that I played 6 blocks away this way, and I heard stories of Hallwick White, which is my great grandfather that lived in Hollis, and driving by the house over there, this felt like home. So all those years I said, I'm born in Jamaica Hospital, all those years playing manhunt, in St. Albans, this felt like home. And so, when I came into the house, I was actually sold a house by one of my fraternity brothers, Mr. Richard Gibbs. He took me in the house and he was like, it's old, but literally on the wall was awards from NAACP Jamaica branch. On the wall was awards from the different organizations in the community that this family lived in. So I was like, this is the ghost of the Taylor family that is, alive here, and the aura, the juju, right? It was just so captivating. And we knew when we walked in, and I literally had a vision at that moment. This is beforehand, but I had a vision of my daughter walking down the steps before she was going to her prom. I kid you not. And my first child that comes along happens to be a girl. So, so I don't take it by accident. I live here. My neighbors, it's like we've been family for years. This is just, who we are on the block. And that's why I love this community so much.
How's the reno going?
Renovation?
Yeah. The house reno?
Oh no, we took care of that essentially right away.
Oh, you're so lucky.
Yeah, we took care of that right. No, my wife's family members they do carpentry. So essentially, when we came in, everything was up to par. We just finished our backyard though. That took a whole year. But yeah, we finally feel like on the backyard side, we can now extend the house, because that's what the beauty, I think, of living here is that you have space,
Yeah, absolutely. That you've got a backyard and a driveway, or
right, alternate side parking, all the luxuries that I didn't understand as a child, but now I get it as an adult.
How many kids do you have?
I have one child. Her name is Merritt Berkeley Smith.
How old is she now?
She is 2.5 years old, coming in July.
Oh wow! And your wife, what's her name?
Her name is Thadisha Smith.
Mm-hmm. And who in your life would you say knows you best?
My wife. I mean, I wanted to say that right away, but I was like, let's see if there's somebody. But no, it is absolutely my wife. She knows how to finish my statements, as cliche as that may sound, but she is truly a gem, and she is the opposite of me. In many regards, but I think we complement. But she just pushes me, and she knows me to the core of me. And the fact of the matter is that we met, while in college. She went to Rider University. I was at Hofstra, and she's a Delta. I'm an Alpha. We became cool, and it was 10 years of best friendship that we had before I said, "What am I doing? I need to marry this woman." And literally, after 10 years of friendship, we got into a relationship and got married. So that's my wife. She knows me best, and I thank God every day for her.
So what was her name again, your wife?
Thadisha.
I'm sorry?
Thadisha. So her dad's name is, dad's name is Thaddeus.
Mm-hmm, right.
Thadisha, yeah.
Nice. So what would Thadisha say is your greatest strength?
Thadisha, she actually said it on the campaign launch, and it resonated in a way, even though I've heard it so many times, is that she said that I have a plan and know how to get it done. I know how to execute. She's seen me come up with small ideas that I was nervous to present, because I was like, nobody's gonna go along with it, and having none of that confidence. to then, now with the big ideas that I'm throwing out there, which really impact so many lives, that same confidence from day one with the small ideas to now with the macro ideas, she's been there supporting me. And she's always said, you have a vision, you have a plan, and then you actually know how to get it done. Oh, you did.
Sorry, I turned the air conditioning on and it can be loud, so that's why I keep muting. I'm sorry about that.
No
What would she say is your greatest weakness?
Um, So there is I wait too long to reach out if I'm hurt. She says that. She says that, and I take it because she tells no lies. When I'm hurt, I kind of, go in, and I don't really necessarily show it outwards, but I think about it a lot, and I talk about it with her, and so she's like, you need to be able to express when someone hurts you at a quicker rate instead of us like walking it through and then talking about it. So that's what I know for a fact she would say.
That that she knows you best, so
Yes.
that's a good
Yes.
thing. So it's day one. So let's say it is January, I don't know, 20th, and you are now Jermaine Sean Smith, council member Jermaine Sean Smith. It's day one. You just raised your hand and got sworn in. What is the very first piece of legislation that you can't wait to get passed, that you are just chomping at the bit, you can't wait to work on?
There is, I think, a dearth of services with relation to the city and what they're doing for nonprofit organizations. And to that point, I feel like the first thing is to, number one, get a liaison in the mayor's office and pass that through city charter where, through legislation where there is someone that is in the mayor's office that is a liaison for nonprofit organizations in New York City. That's step one. I believe that, the last one they had, which was an unofficial title, and that's why they were able to take it away so easily, was in the Giuliani administration, where they had a liaison for nonprofit organizations. And I feel like what we have in our community is so special. And I know every other community feels the same way. They're very prideful about their community. But if we had the ability to get some of the resources that our nonprofits needs, then it will be the people that are closest to the problem that would be able to solve those problems. So day one is, and I think that this is something that almost every city council member would be able to agree on, is having a liaison in the mayor's office that speaks to city council when it's hearings time, that speaks for the status, the state, and what's happening in our nonprofit organizations.
And you also mentioned in that answer that this district is special. Why?
76% of New York City are renters, and 23% are homeowners. But in our neighborhood, it's the absolute opposite. And it's 76% of us that are homeowners. And I think because of that home ownership in a community of color, of affluent, mainly majority Black people, you find that there's a sense of pride here, that there's a sense of our issues are unique because of our status, of being homeowners and African American. So a lot of the city council issues, really speak to the 76% people that are renting. But what we have here is special because everyone will do the absolute most they need to make sure that their home, their block, their neighborhood is the best that it can be. I see it just with the other candidates that are on this forum, these really smart and intelligent people that come from different neighborhoods in District 27. But there's something special about, and it counts because there's so many people that are running for the seat. It shows that our community really cares, are not having to worry about parking on the street, our neighborhoods being safe. These are all paramount to us. And I think those are some of the things that makes us really special.
Thank you. That's a great answer. And I agree. Well, we had parking on my block until very recently when the crazy moved in and brought 20 cars with it. But that's a whole other conversation for another Zoom. But I do agree. Yes. So, um, we already talked a little bit about the not-for-profit liaison. So let's move a little bit more into the district. What are the top three, just briefly, just name them. What are the top three problems in District 27? Just what they are.
Okay. The top three problems is, I'd say, public safety. Mm-hmm. Now that has become paramount, knocking on doors consistently, I'm hearing about public safety and just reading it in the paper. And yeah, so we know that that's that, public mm-hmm. safety. Next is quality of life.
Right.
We have consistent quality of life issues, whether it be the mufflers that are going down the blocks, speeding, endangering our families and our homes, to you name it, firecrackers, you name it. Mm-hmm. Quality of life issues that, really we pride ourselves on here. And then last, I'd say education. Mm-hmm. The services that our community doesn't get in terms of education is concerning, and it is and those are three things that I feel like, and I've also been hearing on the campaign trail about as well.
Okay, so your top three problems in District 27: public safety, quality of life, education. We'll start with public safety. What's the problem and how do you solve it?
Okay, so I believe that the perception of public safety issues comes down to the reality of the violence that we're seeing happening with our young people in our community. We hear the stories, we read the stories, we see the police do not cross line strips, where someone was shot 2 blocks away. There was a gun battle essentially in the neighborhood. And what I see and what I feel like is that more policing doesn't necessarily mean safer streets, safer community. What I do believe, and that's why I believe it all ties back to the nonprofit, I do believe that with nonprofits that are doing the work, there are violence interrupters, there are crime interrupters, they are giving opportunities to our young people to have something to do. And as much as a cliche as it is, I've worked with foster care youth for upwards of 7 years now, advocating for them, but then also actually dealing with the staff that comes in contact with them and helping train them up. And what I found was, if you give a child, a young person, something to do, something to believe in, something to achieve, they'll be able to stay themselves away from the negative crowd. And the population that I've dealt with are the most vulnerable in the foster care, because they don't have a mother at home that's telling them, no, don't do that. They don't have that family. So that family structure to help them. And so in our neighborhood, we have that family structure. We have those young people, and they are being inundated by a lack of having things to do. There are no community centers in the nearby. They have to take a bus and a bus, some of them, to get to Roy Wilkins, right? And so if we have something for our young people to do, then they'll be able to stay away from the guns, stay away from the violence, stay away from the things that will lead them in that life. This doesn't happen overnight, because many of our young people are already very deep into the gang culture. And that's where the innovators, the crime stoppers would come in, and the people that are doing the work of making sure that gang violence doesn't go up, but then also catch the young kids before they make that next step, before they decide to join the gang, before they decide to pick up, a weapon and go down that lifestyle. That's where we have to catch them.
And so that was the first, public safety. Second, quality of life. What's the problem and how do we solve it?
Yeah, the quality of life always seems to revolve around cars. And I know you spoke about someone coming to your block with 20, but I've literally heard that, especially in Queens Village, shout out to Queens Village, a lot of people, a lot of the mechanics and, they're like self-mechanics in their backyard, because they have that space, the cars come and block up the neighborhood. I think that there needs to be something on a city level where there's an understanding of the dynamics of what's happening here. So different rules have to be in place. But then lastly, the other thing is the speeding on the blocks. And I see more and more cameras, but I don't see less and less speeding. You know, looking into this a little bit, you find out, oh, you can't put a speed bump within a certain amount of space of a fire hydrant. So this is precluding them from getting the right amount of speed bumps that we need in our neighborhood. There needs to be a study, some urban planning going on where we're understanding where we can actually put that in our blocks, what other means we can use that can stop the traffic from happening at the speeds that it does. My block sometimes is a raceway. And so I know a lot of people have that same issue. So it's figuring out how we're not going to penalize us by putting up cameras, right? And we're not getting the resources our neighborhood needs, but instead figuring out ways like, you know, putting up the speed deterrents in the streets that is safe, doesn't conflict with code, and keep everyone in the community happy.
And then lastly, education. What's the problem and what's your solution?
Well, I think our schools don't have resources. You know, our schools need more resources, better distributed, and even better utilized. You know, it comes down to an equity. I remember at the beginning of this whole process, I was saying the word equity so much, and that seems to be the hot topic word. And now everybody's kind of catching on. It really comes down to equity. You know, people that were born to advantage, that was not born to advantage need more help, and those living in like under-resourced communities, especially via education, need even more help. You know, there's this idea that's floating around that I'd love to just speak about just in the air, because the candidates, somebody needs to take this if they win, it's not me. The pandemic pods really showed an inequity in our of what was happening in our city, where some people were getting the opportunity to go into classrooms with retired teachers and get education. So there was no pandemic slide for them. There is no summer slide for them. There is no dearth of them learning because of the pandemic. But what that showed us is that we don't necessarily need to be in the same room with someone to get, you know, our children educated to a certain degree. And so I believe that if we start instituting pandemic pods in our neighborhoods, giving our young people an opportunity to get that education, to get up to speed, to get even some of the resources that they have not been getting in school in terms of education, get those pandemic pods up and running. It'll be cost efficient. We have so many concerned former teachers, former educators that are in the community that would love to do this. And the government should be, our city government should be a part of subsidizing and helping pay for these kind of programs, especially here in Southeast Queens.
Isn't it funny how in District 27, there's at least 2 retired educators on every block, I find.
Yes, literally, my next door neighbor who's like, you know, retired a surrogate mother-in-law.
Yeah. Or a retired principal, or retired librarian or something. It's so many in the community, in this community, I find. And they were part of that first generation of African-American teachers that really, you know, really got hired.
Yes.
So it's great that we have so many resources. So we're almost out of time. So I've got one last question. So it's 4 years from now and you've been the council member. How do we measure your progress 4 years from now?
You measure the success by how we're able to, as a community, take a lot of credit for the things that we've done. That's not government programs coming in and, you know, there's the DA's office or the public advocate's office and having these vans and crime interrupters and all. No, I don't think that that's a success if that happens. What is a success is if now we have a council of of nonprofit organizations that are all speaking to the different needs of our communities. And what happens there is that we're taking credit as a community for the work that we've done here. But that starts with city government, there being a person in the city council that can speak to the value, the true value of nonprofits. You see, I would say when closing with this, nonprofit organizations are the backbone of our city, I believe, $77 billion. But no one ever talks about them much because they have no political power, because they are 501c3. I don't have a lot of money because most of the people that I work with are from the nonprofit world, and they are not allowed to get involved in this process because of the laws. But But the fact that remains the same is that every community has these nonprofits that are actually doing the work. In ours, we have really special ones, Life Camp, Showing Hearts Foundations, even down to God's Gospel Cafe down the block from me. These are all nonprofits that are doing the big work in our community, and they need the resources and somebody at City Council that can be a representative and advocate for them.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left, so it's yours. Why should we vote for you? Why should we in District 27 vote for you, candidate Jermaine Sean Smith?
I believe that the council, the district should vote for me because for too long, we've been just trying to survive as a community, survive. Let's just get through the 2018 foreclosure. Let's just get through, the pandemic. Surviving is not good enough. Surviving is not something that I've ever taken on. When I work with young people in foster care, we had to help change their mindset from surviving to actually thriving. The programs that I've implemented, the programs that I've advocated for has changed the trajectory of 3,486 foster care youth in New York City. And I'm proud of that achievement. But I look at our community and I still feel that sense of we're just surviving. When you look at the lines that are still happening at the churches, those 501c3s, where people are still having food scarcities, you look at it and you say, this is a community that is surviving. And I know we have the ability to thrive, but it's going to take a different kind of different kinds of ideas, approaches to this problem. Now, everyone says they have different kinds of ideas, but sometimes it's hard to go through it because it's a lot more of government. And we have a community that's so strong and powerful. And I believe in that community so much so that I believe if we get them the resources that they need, we'll be able to get the job done. We'll be able to stop surviving and start thriving.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining A Better Jamaica today, candidate Jermaine Sean Smith. I am Gail Lewis, and it's been my pleasure to interview you today. And thank you to everyone who watched and who enjoyed the candidate as well. There he is again, candidate Jermaine Sean Smith, in case you guys were wondering. So for everyone here at A Better Jamaica, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Thank you.